She used to trace his name in her mind the way a pianist remembers a melody, by muscle memory, not music. They still laughed sometimes. They still shared a bed. But lately, she felt like an echo sleeping beside the sound that made her. He was there, physically, reliably, responsibly, yet absent in the places that mattered most. His hands reached her body before his presence reached her spirit. She answered with the same practiced warmth that once was real. No one would call them broken. They looked fine. But there is a difference between functioning and feeling, between staying and being met. She didn't want another argument about communication. She wanted communion, not more talking, more listening with the body. Somewhere between their vows and their routines, connection had become performance art. Touch had become punctuation instead of poetry. And tonight, as he reached for her, she realized the truth. The distance between them wasn't measured in space. It was measured in presence. Love, she thought, used to sound like jazz, improvised, alive, surprising. Now it played like background music in an elevator, familiar, forgettable. Connection is not maintained by proximity. It's maintained by tuning. Two instruments can be side by side and still make dissonance if one is out of key. They had tuned their lives to convenience, but never returned to each other's frequency. Schedules replaced curiosity. Efficiency replaced affection. She wondered when attention stopped feeling sacred. When did eye contact become optional? When did listening start competing with screens? She remembered the early days, how he watched her speak, as if every word built a bridge only he could cross. Now, when she spoke, he nodded like a man checking boxes. So she fell silent, not from anger, but from exhaustion. Silence became survival. Presence became a memory. Until one evening, she whispered a prayer, not to be heard, but to be felt. If love is music, teach me how to play again. Sensuality is awareness, not seduction. She began to notice the texture of life again, the warmth of tea against her palm, the rhythm of her breathing, the heartbeat that matched the rain on the window. She realized sensuality wasn't performance, it was perception. To feel deeply was to return home to herself. She started with small rituals, savoring each sip of water, stretching before sunrise, lighting a candle just because she deserved soft light. Each act whispered, I'm still here. Presence is safety. One night she looked at him, not the version she wanted, not the man who forgot the flowers, just him, tired, trying, unsure. Compassion replaced criticism. Presence wasn't demanding he understand her. It was offering silence where understanding could enter. Connection is co-creation. She invited him into a conversation without words. She placed his hand over her heart. "Just match me," she whispered. They breathed, awkwardly at first, then rhythmically. For the first time in months, they weren't fixing anything. They were feeling the same moment. They rediscovered what lovers forget, that connection isn't found in climax, but in coherence. Two nervous systems remembering harmony. Listening is the new touch. She noticed how his shoulders softened when she listened without interrupting, how her own body opened when she let silence finish his sentences. Sometimes, the most intimate thing two people can do is give each other time to finish feeling. Healing is not a performance. Healing looks like making tea together, like laughter halfway through an apology, like choosing not to weaponize the past. It's imperfect, repetitive, human. Every night they practice being new to each other again, not by force, but by willingness. And that's when she understood. Love isn't something you find again. It's something you remember how to feel. Days passed. The house didn't change, but the atmosphere did. She spoke slower. He listened longer. They began greeting each other with eyes instead of autopilot. It wasn't fireworks. It was electricity. Quiet, continuous, undeniable. The distance dissolved without apology or explanation, because sometimes healing isn't dialogue. It's the decision to be present enough to hear what silence has been saying all along. She started teaching herself a new language, the language of energy. When she said good morning, she meant it. When she touched his arm, she did it consciously, not as habit, but as hello. They began trading honesty like love letters, short sentences that said more than monologues ever did. Presence became their practice. Sometimes they sat in the dark, eyes closed, palms touching, matching inhales and exhales until peace replaced words. To the listener, she would say, "Maybe you know this space too. The quiet ache of being next to someone yet feeling far away. Maybe your story isn't marriage. Maybe it's friendship, family, or even yourself. Whatever the distance, presence is the bridge." Here's what she learned. Attention is intimacy. What you notice grows. When you look for gratitude, connection expands. Touch begins in thought. The way you think about someone changes how your hands reach for them. Safety is seductive. When both people can breathe freely, passion returns naturally. They learned that desire without safety is hunger, but desire with safety is worship. Love becomes less about possession, more about participation. She no longer waited to be chosen. She chose presence every day. And he followed, quietly relieved to have directions back to her frequency. To anyone listening, practice slowing your conversations. Let pauses be punctuation instead of panic. Speak less to convince, more to connect. Because communication without consciousness is just noise wearing perfume. Tonight, sit with the one you love, or with yourself if you're rebuilding alone. Set a timer for 1 minute. No words, only breath and eye contact. Notice what rises. Notice what softens. When the timer ends, speak only what you truly felt. No judgment, no fixing, just truth. Then switch roles and listen. Do this for 7 days. Watch how stillness becomes safety and safety becomes desire. I return to the art of feeling. I listen with skin. I speak with breath. I remember that love was never lost, only waiting for me to slow down enough to hear it humming beneath the noise. This was entry 1. The distance between us wasn't space, inspired by Onyx Rose. The next frequency begins where his silence finds her voice, and both finally listen.